There exists a certain type of creature in the world. They are discovered by a few people, but their existence is not confirmed. We collectively refer to these creatures as unidentified mysterious animal, unconfirmed living organisms, abbreviated as UMA. Hello everyone, welcome to the UMA video series. As everyone knows, walking upright is one of the hallmarks of humans. It is also an important feature that distinguishes us from other primates. In evolutionary zoology, scholars describe a type of animal that differs from humans, but can walk upright and appears intelligent, as hominids of evolutionary origin or proto-hominids, which we commonly refer to as wild men or Bigfoot, a close human relative that may have survived to this day. This is what makes this type of UMA so fascinating. The topic I want to share with you today comes from this broad category: the forest pygmies in East African folklore. The name Ague comes from the Bantu language used by the Kuria and Wada people in Tanzania. However, due to the complexity of this language branch and the variations among different tribes speaking the same language, therefore, I couldn't determine its specific meaning. Ague is often described as a small dwarf with a body that is brown or reddish brown, covered with dense hair all over the body, standing between 4 to 5 feet tall, walking upright like humans, living in the deep forests of East Africa, including Tanzania, Mozambique, and Kenya, among other regions, with elusive movements and extremely rare sightings. Reports of sightings of this creature and written records are mostly concentrated in the early 20th century. In 1937, a British monthly, Popular Knowledge magazine, volume 18 of the Discovery series, published an article titled "Mysterious Beasts of Africa." The author of the article was William Hitchens, a British colonial officer at the time. Hitchens, who was also mentioned in our previous work on the Mbowana case as the main event recorder. Hitchens conducted investigations in Africa into 3 unknown creatures, including the Mbowana previously, the Nandi bear in western Kenya, and this episode's subject, Ague. And Ague was the only mysterious creature he claimed to have personally seen. In the article, he described Ague as a furry little dwarf. His exact words were, "Ague, a small, hairy humanoid tribe. It is said that they lurk in the Usutu and Nimbatai forests, on the western edge of the Wembear Plains." A few years ago, I was sent to this area for an official hunting operation. While waiting in a forest clearing for a target animal, I saw 2 small creatures with brown fur emerge from the dense forest on one side of the clearing and disappear into the bushes on the other side. They looked like small humans, about 4 feet tall, walking upright, covered in reddish-brown fur all over. The local hunter accompanying me was stunned and gaped in fear. He said it was Ague, a creature one may not see even once in a lifetime. Small, hairy humanoids. I desperately searched for them, but ultimately, in that nearly impenetrable forest, I found nothing. They might be monkeys, but they are definitely not ordinary monkeys. Not baboons, not colobus monkeys, not vervet monkeys, and not any other known species of monkeys in Tanzania. So, what are they? The local villagers told me some strange stories about these creatures. For instance, if someone places a gourd of Ntulu beer and a bowl of food, these little dwarfs will take the food and cultivate and weed their fields at night as a way of showing gratitude. I believe these might be myths and legends, but the brown little humanoids I saw are indeed real. Perhaps they are yet to be discovered. After the article was published, the public's reaction to Hitchens' statements was mixed, but there was more criticism and ridicule. Soon, in the same magazine series in 1938, another similar sighting was published. The report came from a British brewer named John Cuthbert Burgoyne, who, after reading Hitchens' report, wrote a letter to Discovery magazine and described an encounter he had in 1927. His exact words were, "My wife and I were on a Japanese cargo ship, sailing east along the coast of Puto, now known as the Mozambique coast. We were very close to the shore. Using 12x magnification binoculars, we could clearly see objects on the ground. It was a sloping beach, covered with sparse bushes. Dozens of baboons were active there. From their movements, it was clear. They were foraging, picking up crabs and shells. Among them were 2 pure white baboons. Such baboons are extremely rare, but I had heard of them before. As we were observing, 2 small brown creatures walked out together from the bushes and joined the baboons. I was certain they were not known monkeys, but they must have been related. Otherwise, they would have startled the baboons. They were far away, so we couldn't see clearly, but these small human-like creatures were about 4 to 5 feet tall, standing gracefully upright. At the time, I was thrilled, because they were clearly unlike any beasts I had ever heard of or encountered. Later, a hunter friend of mine told me that he, along with his wife, and 3 other hunters, also saw similar creatures in Puto. A family of 3 similar creatures was also seen, crossing a clearing through the bushes. The locals loudly warned them not to shoot. The consecutive reports over 2 years drew significant attention from scholars. The father of cryptozoology, Professor Bernard Heuvelmans, in his book, On the Track of Unknown Animals, published in 1955, mentioned 2 other potentially related incidents. The first record came from the November 1924 issue of the East Africa and Uganda Natural History Society Journal. An author named Cook stated that in Kenya, east of the Mbu station, about 15 miles away on the Mbeere Plains, near the towering Ngongom Highlands, rising nearly 6,000 feet. According to my research, the name of this place might have changed slightly over time, but it likely refers to today's John Ngongom Forest Reserve, specifically the highest peak, Mount John Ngongom, with an altitude of 5,920 feet. Cook reported that the local Mbu people said herds of buffalo lived there, alongside a tribe of small red humanoids, who had an extremely strong sense of territoriality. An Mbu translator, Old Sam, vividly described his experience. Once, he and some locals climbed near the mountain's summit, when suddenly a cold wind arose around them, and they were pelted with stones, yet they couldn't see the attackers. During their hurried retreat, he happened to look up. Old Sam confidently stated that he saw dozens of small red humanoids standing on the steep highlands, throwing stones and waving defiant gestures. Even to this day, even the bravest honey collectors dare not venture into the mountains easily. The second record comes from the 1940 book Africa Novice, written by British professional hunter and prospector Roger Cornett. In the book, Cornett recorded a story told by his African guide Ali. The original words were, "Have you heard of the pygmies living in the Mau forest? They are not as intelligent as monkeys, nor as civilized as wild savages. Their way of life and behavior are much like monkeys." Then Ali recounted an experience of his father. Many years ago, his father was herding sheep on the slopes of Mount Longonot. One day long ago, he followed the trail of blood left by a stolen cow to a cave where he was captured by pygmies. When he came to his senses, he was terrified. He found himself surrounded by a group of strange small creatures. He later told Ali that the pygmies in the Mau forest were of a lower rank, because, although their tails were not visible, their behavior was like monkeys swinging on trees in the forest. Their skin was pale, like a lizard's belly, but their faces and bodies were covered with long black hair. They were almost like monkeys, even unaware that the spears held by humans could pose a threat to them. They were practically monkeys, even ignorant of the danger of human weapons that could harm them. The above are all the related sightings and records of a Ague. Unlike the Kalanora we discussed before, the image of a Ague leans more towards that of a small, primitive spear-wielding wildman. Regarding a Ague, Professor Heuvelmans mentioned 2 possible theories in his writings. The first theory comes from George Sandrat, a resident of Rwanda, Urundi. He suggested that the so-called pygmies might be pure Bushmen, as they are nearly as short as the pygmies described in legends, and have light brown skin. This perspective was supported by Professor Heuvelmans, who believed that although today purebred Bushmen have been driven to the Kalahari Desert, their populations once spread across a vast region. Their language even influenced all African areas south of the Zambezi River. In addition, their diet and habits align with some legends of the pygmies, but their bare and hairless skin means they could only be one of the prototypes of these legends. Following this, Professor Yuvalmans proposed the most controversial conclusion regarding Ague-like pygmies. He suggested that these small primates might be descendants of Australopithecines. What we now refer to as Australopithecus generally includes all species within the genus Australopithecus. These creatures lived during the Pliocene and early Pleistocene epochs in Africa and belonged to early hominins, believed to be ancestors of the modern genus Homo, as well as Paranthropus and Kenyanthropus. Based on discovered fossils, most Australopithecus species were small and slender, standing between 1.2 and 1.4 meters tall, with males being slightly larger than females. Their brain size was similar to that of modern chimpanzees. Their ankle structure was aligned with humans, indicating they were precursors to bipedal hominins. Professor Yuvalmans believed that nearly all current research suggests Australopithecines possessed a certain level of intelligence. Faced with intense competition pressures, they would instinctively seek a more suitable refuge for survival, to avoid more robust early humans, just like the pygmies of East Africa, avoiding the invasions of the Maasai. It is evident that dense forests became the best refuge, eventually forming a smart, energetic, and upright walking pygmy species. Their harmonious coexistence with baboons may be due to some kind of primate social instinct. This theory was also supported by American science writer Lyle Watson. However, Scottish biologist Professor Ivan Sanderson leaned more toward the idea that Ague was a distinct African miniature race, more primitive than the Bushmen. He believed that, throughout the long course of history, countless ancient human species and subspecies roamed the mountains and forests of Africa, but we do not need to delve deeply into Australopithecine theories to explain them. We must acknowledge that even today across Africa, true primitive tribes still exist. It is evident that they have been enslaved or hunted by taller black races for centuries, but they have survived. Those tribes that were not enslaved must have been more cautious, skilled at concealment. The Sudanese in the west and the Bantu in the east seem to consistently believe that creatures like Ague, although human, are even older than primitive tribes like the Bushmen, and far more ancient. In fact, upright walking, hairy pygmy species are not uncommon in the evolutionary zoology catalog, especially in African regions. In 1986, Professor Yuvalmans, in the 5th issue of the Journal of Cryptozoology, categorized the notable evolutionary creatures, conducted a comprehensive classification, and divided African evolutionary hominins into large and small categories, including Sansandria burnus in the west, Kakandakari in the central region, and Ticloset in the south, among others. However, pygmy species similar to Ague were listed as 26 distinct types. Some originated from ancient legends within certain tribes, while others came from oral reports by local hunters. But the described biological characteristics were largely similar. In my personal opinion, the likelihood of such creatures existing is relatively high, at least higher than some of the beast-like creatures in my previous works. Moreover, the locals who live on the edge of jungles for years have the ability to distinguish stars and hairy humanoids, which I believe is credible. This might be a species yet to be discovered, or perhaps a new type of primate that has evolved over years to walk upright. Or maybe the truth is, as Professor Yuvalmans suggested, that they are descendants of Australopithecines. But in any case, the truth about Ague remains a mystery to this day. We will not deny the existence of these mysteries, nor will we stop our efforts to explore them. So when facing the unknown, I hope everyone watching this video will not hesitate to boldly speculate and think rationally, with curiosity and insight. Well, as always, the final words: the unknown will always surpass the known. And that is the true charm of UMA. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching.